One last time, I promise. I mean, seriously, how many times can we do the burden of proof where the theist is just repeating themselves on overdrive? He's made the exact same video 8 times so far, at least the ones that we've responded to, with no indication whatsoever that he's learned a damn thing. Because of course he hasn't. So let's get to it one last time, and then we can finally put this to bed. Finally, we come to the last of the JCO Journey videos that I promised to do, this one being number 11. Is there something more here than him just repeating himself over and over and over again? I certainly hope so. Yet he really comes off like a broken record, doesn't he? He's just projecting his own evidential failures onto others. And that's not really a good thing, is it? This is religion, though, so I suppose we really shouldn't be surprised. But one last time into the breach, my friends. Let's just get it done.
Talking about how atheists have a burden of proof, there seems to be a lot of critics based on my explanation.
That's because your explanation sucks. You keep saying the same thing over and over again after being directly corrected in the comments of your own videos because you don't really care about the truth at all, do you? I might not say if he had any reasonable excuses, but he doesn't. People tell him exactly where he's going wrong, and he comes back time and time again, repeating it all verbatim. There is no world in which he doesn't know that what he's doing is wrong, but he clearly doesn't care. That's why I figure that since we started looking at this series more than a year ago now, I don't think that he's picked up a single new subscriber at all. He might even have lost some. I don't know. I haven't gone back and looked. Because right now, as I'm writing this, he's sitting at 229 subscribers. Now that's nothing to be proud of, yet he's really practicing insanity, isn't he? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But let's see what else he's going to complain about, shall we? Because that'll be fun.
Whether you take the philosophical standard or your colloquial meaning of the word atheism. But the funny thing is, I'm willing to bet that the critics agree with me. They just don't like the words I'm using to explain my reasoning.
Because your reasoning sucks. Apparently, you think that you can just assert your way to victory, and you're just wrong. We all know that he wants everyone to be just like he is, and that is not how this works. It's where a lot of apologists go wrong, whether they do it on purpose, which I figure a lot do, or whether they're just ignorant, but they're not really talking to atheists at all, are they? In fact, they seem surprised when atheists show up in their comments. They don't want us hanging around because they're really only after an echo chamber. They only want to talk to people who already believe. You know, the people who are giving each other religious blowjobs because they all want the exact same thing. Unfortunately, they didn't bother to consult with the people that they're trying to smear because we aren't afraid to correct blatant misconceptions. But I'm sure that JCO here just wants to be the victim, which that just isn't going to fly. It's not going to stop him, of course, but hey, whatever. We'll make fun of him again and again and again. So I guess it's back to the insanity already in progress.
Try to answer these 4 questions. If I state that God exists, and someone asks for why or for my reasons, am I expected to respond if I want to have an honest conversation about it?
Yes, absolutely. You have made a positive statement about reality, that a God actually exists, and therefore you have the burden of proof to back it up to anyone who doesn't agree. Hell, you should be able to do it even to the people who do agree. You need to justify your claims with evidence, and if you can't, which we all know that you can't, then no one has any reason to take you seriously. So go ahead and do that. That's where the problems come in because they simply can't do that. Oh, when talking to other theists, they can make the same kind of comforting emotional appeals that they've been trying for centuries, but once they get out of their own safe spaces, out into the real world where everybody isn't on their side, that kind of bullshit just doesn't fly. They don't know what to go and do with themselves when people don't just roll over and go, well, of course, that's gotta be true. So, as JCO has been doing, they just shift the burden of proof and insist that the people on the other side have to prove them wrong when they have never proven themselves right in the first place. And that's kind of a problem, wouldn't you say?
If I state that God exists and someone asks for why or for my reasons, but I don't want to discuss it any further, am I still expected to answer?
If you don't want to be laughed at, then yes. If you don't care, then you do you, I guess. This is what we see when the theists come out to preach. But otherwise, they just ignore their detractors. They make no friends among the atheists at all. Not that I suspect they care, and we just have another idiot that we can make fun of for cause. But I've been saying this since the very beginning. Just because you are reasonably expected to meet your burden of proof, that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to. You can walk away. Nobody really cares. But you will have done nothing to justify your beliefs, and the people who you leave behind, they're just going to think that you're a moron, because you will be. But if you want to do that, by all means, go right ahead. You have my express permission. It just doesn't help your side.
If I state that you lack the belief in a God, and I ask why or for your reasons, are you expected to respond if you want to have an honest conversation about it?
If you're having a conversation, sure. But it's not a burden of proof because you have made absolutely no positive claims about the state of objective reality. You've just said, I don't buy it. I can say that about a ton of things. Bigfoot, alien abductions, pineapple on pizza. I have no burden of proof for any of those things because I'm not saying that my position is true. Hell, I don't even have a position. I'm just saying I don't believe you. Nothing more. There is a fundamental difference here that JCO doesn't seem to understand. Or maybe he does, and he's just purposely choosing to ignore it. I really have no clue.
If you state that you lack the belief in a God, and I ask why or for your reasons, but you don't want to discuss it any further, are you still expected to answer?
Same thing goes here as it does with a theist example. But the atheist still doesn't have a burden of proof, whereas the theist does. The difference comes down to that positive claim that they make, and that's one thing that he absolutely refuses to discuss. It's the difference between someone who says there are no gods and someone who says, yeah, I don't believe you. Those are two inherently different statements, but JCO has spent a bunch of videos trying to conflate the two, and you can't do that. I mean, he can and he does, but you can't do so rationally, not that I suspect he really cares. So once again, we see that the theist is the only one that actually has a burden of proof here because the theist is the only one that is making a positive claim about reality. Asking the atheist to prove anything when they have made absolutely no positive claims is like demanding that someone prove that they like vanilla over chocolate ice cream. It's just stupid.
I'm pretty sure your responses will be yes, no, yes, no.
Nope. I mean, it would be yes, no, 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 because he still doesn't understand the situation that he has placed himself into. He fundamentally doesn't understand the burden of proof. Actually, it should probably be yes, yes, no, no, since the theist in both instances is making a positive claim and the atheist never is, but I'll let the second one go because they're retreating to their safe space and I have no means whatsoever to force them to behave rationally. I mean, I never do, but I can at least point and laugh when they don't do it out in public. Now, as I said, if he had the atheist saying, there are no gods, then yes, the atheist would likewise have a burden of proof to back up their own positive claims. But that's not what's happening here, is it? So JCO is just completely clueless. What a surprise.
I've been saying this the whole time. If I claim that God exists and someone asks why or requests my epistemic justification, am I expected to respond to fulfill my burden of proof if I want to have an honest conversation about it?
Absolutely. You made a claim, you are expected to back it up. But here's another thing. If you had said, I believe that gods exist, or a God exists, or whatever, then you don't necessarily have a burden of proof. You are just expressing an opinion. Likely, you will be asked to back it up regardless, because if you can't rationally justify your beliefs, then you have no intelligent reason to hold them in the first place, and likely the discussion will just end. But you don't have a rigorous burden of proof because you have made no demonstrable positive claim about reality. And yes, I have seen theists try to use that to get around their burden, and generally that just means that they sit alone because there's no point in having a conversation with them at all. I generally don't bother with those people because what's the point? You believe whatever you want to believe. I'll be over there talking to the people actually making positive claims. Have fun!
If I state that God exists, and someone asks why or requests my epistemic justification, but I don't want to discuss it any further, am I still expected to fulfill my burden of proof?
Expected? Yes. Are we surprised when you just walk away? No. But that's generally what happens in every religious conversation anyhow, isn't it? Either the theist gets bored of having to defend themselves and they just run for the hills, and that happens a lot, or they never had any intention to do so in the first place, and they're already hoofing it for Schenectady. Or the atheist gets bored that the theist isn't going anywhere, and they just take off and do something more interesting. Never once does it get to the point that the theist adequately supports their claims, because I think we all know that they can't do that, can they?
If you claim that you lack the belief in a God, and I ask why or request your epistemic justification, are you expected to respond to fulfill your burden of proof if you want to have an honest conversation about it?
No, because once again, I have not made a positive claim that needs justification. I'm just saying I don't buy the idea. I don't have to prove why I don't buy the idea, although if you ask, I will certainly tell you. But I have no burden of proof because I have made no positive claim. See, he's really looking for fairness, but this isn't about being fair. It's about requiring people making positive claims to show that their positive claims are actually defensible. I have no positive claims in my atheism, thus I don't have to defend anything. This is just trying to get off the hot seat that you have voluntarily put yourself on. If you don't want to simmer, get the fuck off the stove. This is something that they do to themselves, and then they refuse to acknowledge it because their religion insists that they do it. If they just shut their damn mouths, they wouldn't have a problem, would they? I never go up to a random stranger and tell them that I don't believe in any gods. It just doesn't happen. Yet the religious can't shut the hell up, can they? They just really want their cake, and they really want to eat it too, and it doesn't actually work that way. If you want to share your faith, great, but you damn well better be able to back it up, and as we all know, they simply can't. So that's a them problem.
If you claim that you lack the belief in a God, and I ask why or request your epistemic justification, but you don't want to discuss it any further, are you still expected to fulfill your burden of proof?
Same thing goes, and I don't feel the need to go over it again because, hey, I'm getting really tired of repeating myself. No positive claim is no burden of proof. And that's about all I have to say on that.
Now replace state with claim, epistemic justification with your reasons for it, and add fulfill the burden of proof to emphasize the point.
That doesn't change anything. This, as is no surprise, is just a word game on JCO's part. But then again, he's really been doing that since the first video, hasn't he? He expects everyone to be just like he is, and we're not. He's looking for fairness, and it just doesn't exist. This is like the 98-pound weakling on the football field looking at the 300-pound linebacker bearing down on them and suddenly wanting fair treatment. No, asshole, you put yourself on the field of your own free will, just shut up and accept your destruction. But they don't want to do that, do they? Because today, they are that 98-pound weakling that is losing virtually every encounter, and they're tired of getting their theological asses kicked. So they whine about it instead of realizing that they've hopped up on the stoves themselves, and they shouldn't be surprised when they start smelling smoke. Because they did it to themselves.
It's like saying I provide evidence and I provide evidence for my claim means the same. But apparently I'm wrong for not using your definitions.
Because our definitions are the correct ones. I mean, if you really want to make up your own, go right ahead and we'll just stand there and laugh at you. Because if you can't agree on standardized definitions of things, then you can't have a coherent conversation on anything. So yes, there needs to be some kind of common definition that all parties agree to, otherwise we're all just talking past each other, and what's the point in that? This is where we have to remember that they don't want to talk to us at all. They want to keep it all in the family, using atheists as straw men so that they can feel superior to someone else when they're the ones losing all the time. It's not our fault that your silly book commands you to share your faith. We didn't write 1 Peter 3:15. That you insist on following it, that's kind of your problem, not ours. So stop complaining to us. You keep doing all this stuff to yourself.
Now, in the end, our disagreements often stem from differences in terminology rather than the underlying principles we both value.
Which is why I very clearly define my terms up front in a lot of videos, because I want it to be clear exactly where I'm coming from. In a live discussion, people have to agree before the discussion happens, because otherwise, why should you do it at all? That's the whole point. Otherwise, you're just talking past each other and wasting everyone's time. And you notice that the religious, they don't want to do that, right? Because they love to use word games and fallaciously swapping terms in the middle of a conversation because they are not honest interlocutors. We're going to use the word faith for this here and for that there, with no indication that I'm changing definitions anywhere in between. That kind of stuff doesn't fly. And that's why, if you go back to the very first video in this series, I said exactly what the burden of proof is, and I have consistently said that the whole way through. If I was having a conversation with him in person, it never would have lasted this long, because he's just wrong.
Like importance of providing reasons and engaging in honest discourse.
I don't see any honest discourse here at all, sorry. All I see is yet another theist trying desperately to shift the burden of proof because they cannot meet it on their own. But sure, if you want, I would be more than happy to tell you why I lack belief in your or any gods. I have never had a problem with that. You have to produce evidence to justify your belief that a god or gods exist. Where do you think that's going to fall apart? Because you get two guesses and the first one doesn't count. That's the equality that he doesn't want to have. I'm not claiming that no gods exist. I'm just saying that I find no good reason to think that any do, and I can justify that until the cows come home. All I have to do is say, please present your evidence to me, and when they fail, I still will see no good reason to believe that what they're saying is true. And he can't do anything because he has no evidence. Just because he likes to believe it, that doesn't mean that it's true. So sure, let's do this. Go right ahead. I think we know which side would chicken out first. And it's not mine.
By focusing on these shared values, we can foster more productive and meaningful conversations, even if we don't agree on the stacked definitions.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. You have to agree on what you're trying to demonstrate, or you can't demonstrate anything. I'm not going to let you play word games, and I'm not going to let you act fallaciously. That's all you've been doing for, 8 videos so far? Repeating the same nonsense over and over and over again? Because everyone in your comments is just laughing at you, and for good reason. There is something seriously wrong with this guy. And I trust no one is surprised. Well, that was it. The last of the JCO videos that we're going to do, and honestly, I figure we did about, I don't know, 7 videos too many. I didn't think that one person could repeat themselves this many times, but I guess I should have known better, right? He's out there having a conversation with himself. He's certainly not responding to any of his detractors in his own comments, and he's certainly not doing it remotely intelligently. He's just doubling down on his own stupidity until everyone with a brain's eyes roll into the back of their heads. This is not a good way to have a conversation, is it? But he doesn't want to have a conversation. He just wants to convince the already religious how right he was all along, while being ridiculously wrong constantly. That's not really much of a surprise, is it? So anyhow, what did you think? Did we waste our time on JCO? Let me know down in the comments now that you've seen the whole thing. This is really one thing that I'm not going to miss, the constant lying and repetition of already disproven claims. Because they really want it to be true, but of course that doesn't make it true. I don't care what you want. I care what is demonstrably true in the real world, and they aren't even trying to do that. They're certainly not trying to prove it. They just really like the idea. And they don't learn their lessons either, which is why you have to show up week after week after week and do it all over again, because they're not listening. And if they're not listening, then why do we bother? Because as we all know, they just don't care, and I don't think they're going to start caring anytime soon. That's kind of pathetic, isn't it? But really, what can we expect?